guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go over two different articles dealing with the subject of feminism and obviously the problems it's caused at many levels. And the title of the first article is Women Want to Stand Their Own 2 Feet and Now Their Feet Are Starting to Hurt. And the second article is Smart Men Don't Marry Effinists. And guys, both these articles are written by a woman, a gal by the name of Suzanne Venker, and she is most certainly against the Effinist movement. And she's written a number of articles over the years, and I covered a few of them in the summer of 2020. It's been a long time since I've covered some of her work. And I had a subscriber email me one of her articles he found that I didn't cover, and then I uncovered another one I didn't do, so I thought that'd be a good one to cover. And pretty much, guys, both these articles are gonna just shed some light on the obvious that we all know, the damage that the Effinist movement has caused on multiple fronts, and in particular dealing with relationships and marriage and things like that, but also just how a lot of gals got sucked into this BS. Okay, and at the end of the day, hey, we're all responsible for our own actions. So I'm not feeling bad for anybody, but still, many were sucked into this BS ideology, and things have gone too far. And now a lot of gals are starting to realize the mess it's caused, how they've lost out on a lot of great opportunities because of they drank the Kool-Aid. So this first one I'm going to go over is just that, showing it's not exactly what it's cracked up to be. And this one woman is reflecting on that, what she's basically missed out on and things like that. So it starts off, again, the title is Women Wanted to Stand Their Own 2 Feet and Now Their Feet Are Starting to Hurt. Starts off saying, the title for this post came from what I thought was a quippy comment on my Facebook page after I posted the transcription of a conversation between radio host Dennis Prager and one of his callers, Jennifer, who wanted to offer some advice to young women. By the way, I did an article that covered this particular conversation back in the summertime, but now she's using this article, which I did, to make other points. So if this sounds familiar, that's why, guys. She says, simply put, she wanted to warn women that Effinism is a lie. And here's a breakdown of some of the highlights from that particular post. The woman says, you do act like my career is everything. I love working, she said, but it's a lie on the inside for me. It's unfortunate I didn't realize this until too late. I don't know if it's too late. I would like to find somebody to go on vacation with. Translation, this woman in this particular article, who she was writing about, spent her whole life doing what guys do, focusing on her purpose and putting aside relationships and family and marriage and all that because she was focusing being a career woman and all that, and started to realize that I got no one in my life. I'm unhappy. I'm alone. I got no one to even go on vacation with. And you're going to find out her mother was an Effinist and pushed her towards this. And now she's obviously old. I think either 40s or 50s, one of them, older, and she's not very happy. Imagine that. She goes on, somebody asked me the other day, why did you stay single and never have kids? There's no good answer for that except I was programmed to get into the workforce, compete with men, and make money. Supposedly that would be a fulfilling life, but I was told about that by my Effinist mother who was divorced, who hated her husband, my father. So her Effinist mother brainwashed her into following this path because her mother was pissed off at the girl's father. Okay? You're going to be a strong woman. Make a lot of money, compete with those guys, fight the patriarchy. And now she's alone and miserable. Now again, you make your bed, you lie in it. She's accountable for her actions. And so I'm not going to get pity for her. Oh, but my mom made me do it. Well, bullshit, you made the choice to do it. But look what her mother did. She said, I didn't realize this until late in life. I want to tell women, find someone in your 20s. There you go, right there. That's how things used to be. The gals would meet their dude in their 20s. They weren't being the ball buster Effinist. They weren't trying to do everything a guy can do and all that. Imagine that. That's when you're still very cute. That's when you're still amiable to working out problems with someone. It's harder in your 50s when you lived alone to compromise with someone, to have someone in your home and every little thing about them annoys you because you're so used to being alone. It's hard to undo that, so don't do what I did. Find someone in your 20s. There you go, guys. A woman in her 50s who followed that path and said flat out it's a mistake. To the young gals out there, find a guy in your 20s. Don't make the mistake I did. Now, how many gals here, now we're in 2022, how many gals in their 20s after being programmed since birth in the school systems, by movies and television, by music, everything you can think of that I haven't mentioned yet, are going to listen to someone's advice in their fifth. They'd be like, okay, boomer. Or that's not me. Oh no, I'm different. Okay, you'll see. But yeah, she's alone. She's unhappy. And you know what? That's unfortunate. I don't want to see anybody in life unhappy. Really. I mean, the world would be a better place if people were happy. But still, look what happened by following that path. After I posted this article, there were the usual number of comments. But one exchange between a man named Scott and a woman named Sarah focused on the reasons why women in particular have a hard time finding a husband. I could go on for 3 hours why the gals have a hard time nowadays in 2022 finding a husband. I can go on forever. I've done plenty of videos on this. You put them all together, be here for hours. I don't need to list them all, but we all know the reasons why. And who caused this problem? Who caused this mess? We all know it. Because there's plenty of guys out there that would love to go down the traditional path and marry a great gal and have a family. There are dudes that watch this right now. Unfortunately, they've seen how things have devolved. Devolved over the decades. And it's going to take a long time to go back to where things were. Not anytime soon. That's why guys are saying, that's it, I'm not getting married. Hell no. I know I'm going to be raked over the coals in the divorce process. The courts are against me. And on top of that, all these gals acting like men out there. Hardly any feminine girls that are traditional, have values, and yet ones I can trust. So they're saying, hell no. We know who caused this problem. According to Sarah, in this discussion, men don't have a biological time frame. It's different for us. Having said that, it's not easy to meet a decent, honest family man who wants marriage and family now, so you guys can't be so quick to blame women. Got to look at all angles and have compassion too. Most men are not providers anymore. Well, who are the ones that push for the S-word revolution and all those other things, and why a lot of guys are like, hey, I'm not settling down now? Or who are the ones that made guys out to be the bad guys and blame us for everything wrong in the world? Or who's raked over the coals in the divorce process? I mentioned that earlier. Why would any guy put themselves in that situation? According to Steve, he says, why should we be providers? Do you feel men have a moral obligation to do so? Men provided for women who needed them, and the women leaned on them and provided domestic support in return. According to Sarah, she says, how can a woman do that and have it all if she has to provide? Women should stop having sex with men unless they are a provider husband. Well, nowadays, guess what? The gals want to be the providers. And also, women have worked, obviously, more gals are going to college and graduating college and getting high-level positions in different companies, which I respect anybody that works hard and does well for themselves. So you have a lot of women that are now breadwinners in relationships because they're making more money. So, and by the way, I've mentioned countless times and done stories on this, how that usually doesn't go very well in the long run when the gal makes way more money than the guy, because in her view, whether she wants to admit it or not, she's settled. Because women want a guy that always does better than them. They can feel like they got a prize. So if she makes $150,000 a year, I'm just picking a number here. You know, if a guy makes $150,000 as well, that's settling because he makes as much as her. Or God forbid, he makes only $100. Then she's I got a raw deal because I make more than him. He only makes $100. The only way she'd see herself getting a deal is that dude was making $250 or $300, almost double what she makes, or double. Then she's getting a prize. Steve says, I don't disagree with your last statement, but there is a lot more that women need to change in their behavior besides withholding sex from men until they provide for you. Sarah says, but like I said, most men are not providers anymore. My father was a provider, so was my granddad. And in their 20s. Most men in their 20s these days are useless. Ouch. Well, I will say this. You got a generation out there and a growing second generation of kids that were definitely very spoiled by their parents. You know, their parents were raised by the generation that came back from World War II, and their parents were hard asses on them. So I'm not going to be that way with my kids. So they were too easy on their kids. Instead of raising them for adulthood, instead of preparing them to be an adult in a tough, competitive world, they decided being their friend, the friend of their kids, was more important first, and that. This is what we have today with a lot of the millennials out there and Generation Zs. I know I got millennials and Generation Zs that watch me, and I don't mean you're all like this, but you know darn well a lot of your group are like this. The parents were way too easy on them. I had some friends. I'm not millennial. I'm right in the border because I'm 44 years old, and I disagree with where they had the beginning of the millennium. Some say I believe 1981 on. I think that's horseshit. I think it's more like the real attitude and sense of entitlement that a lot of the millennials have. I started noticing that with kids that were born from 1985 on, but that's something people can debate back and forth forever. But the point is, there was a generation, there was a change where the kids had it way easier, and the parents, again, were trying to be their friend, then prepare them for adulthood and tough competitive world. And therefore, you had a lot of guys in their 20s, not to mention they didn't have a father around because so many single-parent households were popping up everywhere with the moms running the show, that weren't as ambitious in their 20s as the previous generation, or as hardworking, or as dependable. Now, I'm working hard to help guys embrace what was in the past and go for their goals, be successful, be ambitious. But if we're being honest, there are a lot of dudes in their 20s that are still goofing off. I want to see that. So there's a fair point there. Some of you may not like me saying that, but it is the freaking truth. But who also caused these guys to be carefree and hooking up left and right? That comes from the S-word revolution. If the girls are hooking up left and right, hey, why should they settle down? So there's another element there. Chicken or the egg. Anyhow, said here, Steve said, so which came first, the chicken or the egg? Well, there you go. And there it is. Which did come first, the chicken or the egg? We know that the answer to this. It was women who changed the rules. It is women who told men in no uncertain terms that they don't need them anymore. They can stand on their own 2 feet and do everything themselves. But can they? And why would they want to? What was the point of that? To prove what exactly? See? We know who did this. We know what movement fueled all this. And now we go back to the beginning of the article with a woman in her 50s she was referring to in that article, who's unhappy, who's in her 50s, alone, no guy, no family, no kids. And she's warning. Now, again, how many gals in 2022 are actually going to listen to that warning? Probably not a whole lot. So I agree with the caller about women finding someone in their 20s, though statistically mid-20s is better than early 20s. And even then, they have to look for an older man because 20-something men are too busy with their bachelor lifestyle, since women now make themselves available to them for free. Well, again, you got the guys in their 20s that had it very easy growing up, so they weren't focused too much on goals and ambitions and making something themselves. But also the fact that thanks to the S-word revolution and knowing darn well that the gals nowadays are not about relationships, they're about riding the carousel. Guys are like, okay, I'm going to be an eternal bachelor as well and have fun too. There you go. And again, who can blame them given the environment we're in? So it's a vicious circle. The combination of birth control pill and the S-word revolution, when women were encouraged to have you-know-what like a man, casually with no strings attached, permanently altered the state of gender relations. Men now expect sex and can thus postpone adulthood as long as they want. See? Which leaves marriage-minded women in a rut, for it is significantly harder now for them to find a husband. The rules have changed, and we haven't replaced them with anything better. Perhaps it's time to return to the old ways. Well, I agree with that, but good luck having that happen anytime soon. It's going to be a slow process. The pendulum has swung way too far in one direction, and it's going to take time to start going back. It will, but it's going to take time. Now, the second article, which she wrote, I think was a good one just to add to this on this theme, is Smart Men Don't Marry Effinists. Smart men don't even get anywhere within 100 yards of an effinist. I've known guys that have been in a relationship with gals that were effinists, and they were miserable. But these are also guys that were definitely softer guys. These were guys who I know for a fact whose mothers ran the house. That their dads, although good men, simply were weak. And mom ran this show. And these guys, one in particular I can think of, was a total mama's boy. He openly admitted it. So he was drawn to ball-busting, bossy women. And yet, interestingly, they were very unhappy. And it didn't end well on both those relationships that I can think of right now. And I'm sure many of you guys have known dudes that have been in relationships with effinists, and because they're never happy. They're always bitching about something, some injustice in the world. They're always keeping score on who did what in the relationship because everything's got to be 50-50. No fun, no sense of humor, let alone marrying one of these types. So, she starts out saying, have you ever made your husband a sandwich? If so, you should be ashamed of yourself. Don't you realize such behavior sets women back decades? That's the message of a new article in the Daily Telegraph entitled, When Making a Sandwich is a Crime Against Effinism. about an Australian woman named Maddie who asked a Facebook group of 26,000 mothers whether anyone had some yummy alternatives for her husband's lunches, which she said she makes him every day. Now that's what anyone I know would. She says, have you ever made your husband a sandwich? If so, you should be ashamed of yourself. Don't you realize such behavior sets women back decades? You know what, this part was actually, they wrote this thing twice, so bear with me here. I did read this, but I didn't notice this early on. Anyhow, it goes on. Now that's what anyone call a nice wife. But that's not what Maddie was called on Facebook. Instead, she was told that she was nothing but a slave and a 1950s housewife. She was also weird, as no woman in their right mind would do something so demeaning as to make her husband lunch. What a load of crap. Demeaning. That's the epitome of how awful things are in the world. For God forbid a woman wants to cook her husband a meal or prepare him lunch for work or something like that. That's what these types think is the great injustice. I'd like to put all these types with that mentality on a ship and send them to a part of the world where, let's just say, I'm sure many of you guys can think of because it was in the news at the end of the summer, that women have zero rights, and let them spend the summer there and come back and see how bad this whole making a sandwich thing is after experiencing a summer in that part of the world. Honest to God, making a sandwich, cooking for your guy. You know, the path to a man's heart is through his stomach. So if a gal can cook very well, believe me, that's a prize. And the bedroom. Here's just a sampling of some of the responses that Maddie got on Facebook. Now listen to these quotes. This is just ridiculous. Number 1, your husband is a grown-up and you're not his mother. Number 2, my husband can make his own damn lunch. Number 3, I make my husband the same thing he makes me. Nothing. Number 4, stuff that. Hubby is a grown man. I already do his laundry and keep his children alive. Number 5, our advice is to stop making his lunches. Number 6, my role is childcare during working hours, and that's it. And number 7, he's lucky if I decide to make dinner some nights. Wow, these sound like really fun, happy women to be married to. Welcome to 2021. Well, this article's a few years ago, but that's pretty much nowadays. I don't see many guys getting in line to marry these types. Again, the cooking the meal, the making of lunches is such a great injustice. Send their asses off to a certain part of the world where they would see real quickly how easy they have it. She says, welcome to Effeminist America. The idea that a wife would, or God forbid should, do anything for her husband with no expectation for anything in return. Just to be nice. Because as Maddie put it, she loves her man. And they can afford to eat out. And they can't afford to eat out. Makes her weak. Honestly, is it really a wonder why the relationship between the sexes is such a mess today? Or why, as Bloomberg published just last week, married Americans are unhappier than ever? Yes, they are. And again, where did all that come from? Thank you, Effeminist movement. Is it any wonder that more and more people are avoiding marriage nowadays? Is it any wonder that the divorce rate is higher than ever? And I can go on and on and on. This is a direct result of this, because when you have women acting like men and men conditioned to act like women, that's we see that all the time, movies and TV and the media and all that. It's a big freaking mess. Or you have men that are actually masculine men, and the women that are programmed to act like men as well. And it's like having two dudes in a relationship, two bulls in a pen. It is like locking horns. It's not going to work. It's a big mess out there. There's nothing wrong with a gal being soft and traditional, having values, and loving her husband and doing nice things for him. God forbid if it's making him a freaking turkey sandwich. Honest to God. Talk about a bunch of spoiled brats that have nothing else to deal with but bitch about that type of stuff. And God forbid if he asked her to clean the house when he was away at work. God forbid. In my opinion, it is largely because there are so many women in America today who either knowingly or unknowingly have a effeminist mind. Effeminists teach women above all else to stand up for themselves against the evil men of the world. Even harmless husbands fall into the category of evil men, since they supposedly long to lord over their wives. Thus, the knee-jerk reaction to the suggestion that a wife might serve her husband in some way, make him a drink or a meal, is to become defensive. I did a story about a month ago about a guy wrote in and he talked about how his wife was very traditional and feminine, and they would have barbecues and all their friends would come over, and one of his buddies from work came over, and his wife was young and she was an F-ness, and she got all pissed off and insulted his wife for bringing him out a beer. All the dudes were out by the grill, and she came out and brought him a beer, and this young woman started shit about that. I mean, talk about disrespect, somebody in somebody's house, insulting someone in their house at their party they invited you to. Well, now that relationship didn't work out between that guy and that gal because he got rid of her. But the point is, God forbid she brings you a beer when you're playing poker or hanging out with your buddies for a football party or something like that, or watching the Super Bowl, or make you a sandwich. See? It's not demeaning. Get the hell out of here. She's doing a nice thing. And guess what? The guy would do nice things for her. Anyhow, it goes on. The F-ness worldview is antithetical to love because its focus is solely on women, their needs, their wants, their desires, and their rights. Love can't possibly be sustained with an attitude like that. Yeah, there's no love in that situation. Of course, there are men who support F-ness. My friend Helen Smith, PhD, refers to these type of men as Uncle Tims in her book, Men on Strike. And Uncle Tim is a male sellout who kowtows to F-ness because he's A, just as left-wing as they are, and thus agrees with the F-ness worldview, and B, too weak to stand up for himself and knows that if he says anything he's not supposed to, he won't get SCX. Well, newsflash, guys that go along with what women want like this and agree with everything they say, they don't get SCX anyway. In fact, it's the guys that disagree with the women and give them a challenge, they get all the SCX they want. Imagine that. But I'm sure a lot of you guys watching this know dudes like she described here. And you just want to knock him out. She says, most Uncle Tims who fall under Category A live on the East and West Coast. That is definitely true. I'm here on the East Coast. I'm in Massachusetts. Not for long. In about 1 year, I'm going to be out of here. But anyhow, yeah, a lot of them in this part of the world here. Let's just say they don't like me too much, some of them. Those who fall under Category B live anywhere. But one area of the country they're scarce in is the South and Midwest, because that's where the real men live. And smart men don't marry F-ness. The men who do have been feminized and are proud of not being the man of the house. They see that as backwards and take pride in their progressive, non-manly ways. Of course, don't expect an Uncle Tim to kill the intruder in the house on the wife's behalf. He's given up the role of provider and protector. He and his wife are equals. You know, it's funny, but it's like you have these gals that talk about, you know, I want a man that's soft and kind and all that stuff. Like, okay, let's just say you're walking down the street at night, you're in the city or something like that, and let's just say some guys come up to you and start trouble. Who are you going to want to have with you by your side? Do you want a guy that's emotional and soft and all that, like the Uncle Tims here? Or do you want a guy who maybe he's a little bit of a brute on occasion, but you know what? You feel safe with him. You're going to want that guy who's you would refer to as a brute, or these types as a brute, because those guys will fight back. They'll protect you. Do you want a protector, or do you want a pussy? That's something to think about for these gals, or these type of gals. They want to be the ones that are going to fight back. Anyhow, unfortunately, the Uncle Tims are often the ones who lose in the end because all too often, F-ness wives regret their choice to make their marriages androgynous. And the men who give up their manlyhood because they thought that's what women in society wanted are left in the dust. Yes, I've done a lot of stories where guys thought that it was, hey, I was being that soft, emotional type of guy that they portray in the movies and TV and who she says she wants, and he acts that way, and she ends up cheating on him with a guy who does nothing like that, a Chad and Tyrone type, a masculine guy, or breaking up with him for somebody like that. And he's like, what happened? I did everything that I was told I was supposed to do. And they're puzzled by this. Now, those types of guys you want to punch in the face sometimes. But then again, also, they were also led astray from early on, were brainwashed. And I know I get some guys like that here. I've had some guys email me saying how initially, when they found my channel, they hated my guts, they disagreed with everything I said, and they then did all these things that they're supposedly told to do, thanks to movies and TV and what the gals say, and they end up getting dumped or cheated on. And then they realize the things I talk about, and other channels as well, maybe we're not as full of crap or a bunch of a-holes as they thought we were, and they realize that things I talk about in other channels were actually pretty accurate. And I've had some dudes write in and admit they were wrong, which I respected. And now they're forever changed. Anyhow, she finishes up saying, to improve the state of marriage in this country, what we need are fewer F-ness and fewer Uncle Tims. Amen, sister. We need real men who aren't afraid to stand up to the effeminist gobbledygook. A fantastic example is Chad Prather, aka Political Cowboy, who, not coincidentally, is from Texas. Check out his very funny and very true video on gender inequality. Well, I will check that out. Now there's a smart man, and I bet my life savings his wife isn't a effeminist. So there you go, guys. A couple quick articles there. A few years old, but they're relevant. I thought it'd be a good one to cover here. But yeah, marrying an effeminist, no smart man would do that. No smart man really nowadays would get married anyway, but you know, I've covered that many times. Enough times I'm blue in the face. And also the first article there about, let's just say it's not... Following the effeminist path isn't as cracked up as a lot of gals thought it would be when they got into it, and then they get older and realize how much they've lost and given up and wasted by following this BS ideology and mindset. And a lot of gals are hurt now because of that. But as an adult, you make your bed, you lie in it, and you have to take responsibility for your choices, not blame everybody else. But you know, good luck with that, with the whole accountability thing. But anyhow, not working out so well. So it'll be interesting to see how things go in the decades. Personally, I don't see anything changing that dramatic anytime soon. But I do what I can here to help guys out, bring awareness and all that. If I can do my part to help, then that's great. I'm happy with that, doing my thing. But we all got to do our parts here, guys. That's why it's important for you guys to educate yourselves, talk to other people, talk to other guys, and be a good role model to your younger brothers, to your sons, to your grandsons, nephews, whatever. And also the gals. Showing what a strong masculine man can be and help change the tide, because we need this very much in our society, and not to mention as a nation. So, all right, guys, that is it for today. Be sure to comment down below, let me know what you think about this, and be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.